Hey, today I'm going to show you how to coat a recessed joint by hand. We're going to do that right after this. Okay, in today's video, I'm going to show you how you would coat a recessed joint for the first coat by hand. We're just going to use a pan and a knife. You can use a hawk and a trowel, whatever works for you. I think pan and knife is easier for most people. And we're just using some +3 out of a bucket here. I usually mix it up out of boxes, but I've thinned it down just a little. This actually came this way onto the job. It's a little thinner than I want. You can see. So as far as thinness, what you want to do is you always want to mix your mud. Do not use it out of the box. Don't use it out of the bucket. It feels like crap. It needs to be mixed up. Once you mix it up, suddenly it becomes like butter. It's smooth, it's creamy, and then you thin it down to the level that works for you. You want it thin enough to where you're not having to just really push to spread it. It's going to make it hard to even put it on right. So thin it down just enough to where it's workable, but it's not dripping. The thinner you get it, the more it's going to shrink. So that's another reason you don't want to thin it too much. Now, a lot of novices have the wrong view of how to coat these and try and put too much on and then sand it down flat, and you're just going to damage the drywall. You're going to make a mess, a lot of dust. You don't need to do that. So let me kind of show you how I do it here. You want to get, this is a 10-inch knife, by the way. You want to get as full a knife as you can and just start right at the end, and you hold your knife at about a 45, and as you move across the wall, you're going to lean your knife over more and more. Now, I've showed this before, but this is exaggeration, but you're spreading it, keeping your knife fairly tight to the wall, and you want to keep medium pressure because you don't want to put it on to where it looks like this. That's too light of a pressure. And you also don't want to put it on like this where you're not putting enough on. So let me show you how I would do it, and you can just basically try and imitate what you're seeing here. So we start right here, and you want to move fairly quickly. You don't want to go too slow. So you can see I leaned it over all the way. Now you can see there's just barely enough to cover the tape, but not much more. So we'll pick that up. Now you want to feather the edge, which means tilting and bending your knife like that, and just doing that kind of a feathered edge. And do the other side. You don't want to go too far where you wipe way down into here, and you don't want to do too shallow where you barely get it. So it takes a little practice, but see, that could be even a little bit further, about like that. Now, you might ask, do you want the curved side to the wall or away? I always work with my knife to where basically the curve of my knife is going like this. Once in a while, I turn it around to where the curve goes like this if I feel like I need to put it on extra heavy, but for this first coat, you don't want that. So now we just lean it over, keep it at a steady angle, medium pressure, and look at that. That's perfect. That's just what we want. Now let me show you, there is a very slight crown. You want to shoot for a very slight crown, meaning this, a crown. And the reason is the mud's going to shrink a little bit. So by putting a slight crown, it shrinks back. We're not shooting for dead flat. We usually want to end up with a very slight crown. All right, now I'm going to wipe all this off just to show you I wiped it pretty tight just to show you the speed that I normally do it, just for comparison. You guys don't want to go too fast, but again, you don't want to go too slow. So okay, I took a picture of this before so you can see the recess under it. And now I'm going to show you the picture after it with this straight edge across. And you can see it's basically flat. There's like maybe a 64th of an inch of crown, and that's about it. You're really not trying to just fill in from here to here. You're trying to go just barely past it with a super thin layer. Because once you hit this recess where it turns, if you sand down that far, it's going to show. The other thing I want to point out is I made that in one continuous pass. That way there's not a lot of lap marks that we got to sand off. There's really no sanding needed on this at all before the next coat, other than maybe to catch a little gremlin, like a little speck of mud that got left somewhere. Sometimes that happens, so I will go over it, but really quickly, just looking for those things. Sometimes the mud will curl off the end or something. We don't want that in our next coat. So I drew you up this illustration. Now, it's not the best drawing in the world. I did this on my computer, and I'm not a illustrator kind of guy, but this should help you out. You can see here the example is 2 pieces of rock with a recessed joint in between, and the paper tape laying on the joint, of course, embedded in mud. And then you see the point here is that very, very slight crown in the mud. And you do that with your slightly curved knife. It will actually curve over even if the curve is going the opposite way. It's kind of hard to explain. Just trust me. If you learn to do it right, you can get a very slight crown in it, and that helps hide the edge of the recessed joint. Hey, if you want to increase your learning power 1000%, be sure to subscribe to my channel and hit that thumbs up. After you subscribe, look for that bell, click the bell, and you'll get notified of all the videos. Hey, you see these other things popping up here? These are clickable links. If any of those interest you, click on one. I'm sure it'll help you out. I look forward to seeing you on the next video. Take care, everybody.